Emily Dickinson and the Poetic Tradition.
Biography. Emily Dickinson was born on December 10, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts. Dickinson was educated at the Amherst Academy and following then attended seminary school for a year. Emily Dickinson died on May 15, 1886 at the age of 55 in her hometown due to a kidney disease. The hometown that she was born on has now been turned into a museum. Emily Dickinson was an American poet and was unrecognized during her life. Only a few of her works were published during her life. The few works that were published had been edited and altered to adhere to conventional standards at that time. Sadly, the true portrayal of her word usage and meanings were lost by the alterations. The rest of her works were published after her death, which led to making her famous today. In all, it is said that she had written over 1,800 poems. The first volume of these works were published in 1890. Then, in 1955, the full compilations, The Poems of Emily Dickinson, were published. These works were not edited and were in their most original form. These works helped shape 20th century poetry. Dickinson chose to express her feelings through her poems to family and close friends. She used characteristics or themes such as wonders of nature, the identity of self, love, immortality, and death. Some of her famous works included Hope is the Thing with Feathers, Come Slowly, Eden, Snowflakes, and Wild Nights, Wild Nights.
Dickinson shapes American literature and the American identity. During Dickinson's lifetime, there was a lack of poets and poetry was not popular. Poets failed to express their true emotions through poetry during her time. Emily Dickinson wrote about the problems in society, but also her beliefs on death, love, and nature. American literature without Dickinson would have been set back many years. After some of her poetry was published, other poets began to expand their writing ideas, which has helped influence authors today. She helped shape American identity in poetry by being the model of original poetry, making poetry popular. Her works challenged society and deviated from the contemporary ideas and beliefs of her time. Her ideas and beliefs became the heart of American identity. She was known as the mother of modernism because she had the most influence on early modernists, along with Walt Whitman, who is known as the father of this movement. Emily Dickinson is known as one of the most influential American poets today.
Hope is the Thing with Feathers. This poem was originally posted in 1891. This is one of her most known poems. Dickinson used a metaphor to compare hope to a feathered bird. This feathered bird or entity is in all of us, permanently in our souls. She wants to remind us that no matter what circumstances we may go through in life, there is always an entity inside of us to help us out. We just have to listen to the singing of our inner soul. Follow your heart. We ourselves known what is best for us. Self-identity is a characteristic of this poem.
Come Slowly, Eden. This poem was published in 1966. In this poem, she uses nature to express her feelings about love. In this poem, Dickinson uses Eden to symbolize paradise, like the Garden of Eden. She uses a bee as a metaphor to stress that there can be too much of a good thing or too much love. I feel that she is wanting to warn somebody to slow down and not to rush love. Love needs to be two-sided and needs to be taken slow. If love is one-sided, it can majorly impact the person that thought they were being loved too. The fainting bee is like love that faded away or that was never truly there. Snowflakes. This poem uses nature as a metaphor to express her true inner feelings about life. Dickinson uses snow as a metaphor for joy and happiness. At first she compares the snowflakes to rebels and then is jolly. I feel that she is wanting people to know that you must enjoy the small things in life. We need to stop being so focused on the negative and focus on what makes us happy. We need to take the time to slow down and enjoy the small things that we may take for granted.
Wild Nights, Wild Nights, Wild Nights is about desire, passion, and love. Dickinson was a recluse that stayed inside for a majority of her life. She expressed her desire for love. She compares lovers and their passion with the beauty of heaven. I feel that she's stating how beautiful love can be and how strong of a bond two lovers can have. Being with the person who loves things an unimaginable amount of happiness and joy and will fulfill your life to the fullest.
In the article, The 10 Best Emily Dickinson Poems by Nala O'Connor, she describes her picks of the top 10 poems by Emily Dickinson. Nala also wrote a novel on Emily Dickinson called Miss Emily that captured how Emily Dickinson truly was and was able to bring her to life. This article stated that most of Emily's work was done in secret and that she did not share most of what she wrote. There were only around 10 poems that were published during her lifetime. When she died, her sister Vinnie found almost 1,800 poems in her bedroom. Based on this article, Dickinson did not seem to care about being famous. She wanted to keep her name protected. In the poems listed in this article, she wrote on many different topics ranging from death, love, and fame to her views of the natural world. This article also has the author's view on why these poems are popular. In my opinion, this article is accurate and has reasonable views of the poems. The author does a great job at summarizing the selected works by Emily Dickinson. This article also explains how Dickinson did not want to be famous and that there were very little works published during her lifetime. Even though Dickinson did not want to become famous, she is now a literary icon. She did most of her work in secret, but she still held on to what she produced. This makes me think that she cherished her poems and took pride in them. So maybe she did want to become known, just not during her lifetime.
Annotated bibliographies continue. The article Her Own Society When Emily Dickinson and Her Radical Friend Thomas Wentworth Higginson Met for the Very First Time. It was about the first time that Emily Dickinson met her friend Thomas Wentworth Higginson. The article was very well written and to me gave character to a love that seemed to grow over the years between the two. The article explained that Higginson was randomly selected to critique or be selectively privy to her writings before anyone. He was a large proponent for the freedom of slaves and fought to protect them. He was much like a Robin Hood of his time in the slavery culture. Although this was not always the case. Many times her works would have already been published in local magazines and newspapers. The two exchanged correspondence over a period of 8 years before actually meeting. When they did, you can see that the years of tension had built up into an interesting and emotional introduction. That they told each other of their lives and the things that they hadn't in their letters and went on their way. Higginson made a point of being thankful for the distance between them once he had realized how excited he had become in her presence. My interpretation of this was very perplexing. I didn't know about Dickinson as well as I had before, so this was a very interesting article for me. I think that the reason she chose to write to Higginson was because he was daring, popular, and stood for many things that she did. I see the way that she writes to him and how she responds as being alive and full of that and being fiery desire to see one another. Although at times it almost seems like Dickinson is like a cat after a mouse playing along until she's ready to move on. It's oftentimes as she really just needed attention from Higginson and that he was just an interesting person to communicate with. For Higginson, it seemed as if he had found the woman of his dreams, unique and wonderful, someone who was mysterious and cunning, that he would claim for his prize. To me, both of their personalities were made for each other. Annotated bibliographies continue. In the article, Emily Dickinson poet as theologian. You can see how the author tries to show how Dickinson is much like a pastor in her works. She uses different poems and analogies for many different scholars to show this. She is able to accurately portray Dickinson in many of her works with theological ideas and similarities. Cook wants to show that even though Dickinson may not have been a very religious in her works, vividly she shows characterization and creativity with religious insinuations. I think that the writer did an amazing job showing how all of the works follow the theological ideas. She did very great on showing how much detail and wording Dickinson used to create her works and follow theological ideas. I was very impressed with the amount of different works that she was able to relate to and the fact that she used different scholars to back up her work. She did, however, go over and over with her need to prove this point. To me, she put too much emphasis on the point and went on and on about the same thing. I think that many poems do have to do have the theological tendencies behind them and the ability to show a religious message. I don't think though that she was able to truly prove that this can be correlated into a pastoral type that Dickinson can use for a title. I think that this would be going a bit too far down a very questionable path for many in the world of religion.